Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be finally finishing off the series of top 5 best champions in each class in Marvel Concierge Champions December 2019. So today we're going to be talking all about Mystic Champions. So there definitely have been some certain changes this year in Mystic class overall, as well as a couple of really huge flops. But yeah, either way, so we have released the 5 videos of Science, Tech, Skill, Mutant, and Cosmic classes, and Mystic is the last class left before I go into my overall top 10 or top 5 champion list in game currently. But before we do that, obviously we do have to discuss some of these Mystic champions right here, right now. And we're gonna do that by filtering out all Mystic champions, and as always we're gonna start from spot number 5, moving on to spot number 1, and then give a couple of honorable mentions to kind of like close out the video. Spot number 5, currently I would probably myself place how high a version of him. Where is he hiding? Here we go. Spot number 5 goes to Dr. Voodoo, because Dr. Voodoo, despite being incredibly kind of like old character, and by his definition there isn't like all that much to him, but he is still extremely versatile and has a great deal of utility to kind of exploit, and there's a lot he can kind of do. There's quite a bit he can do relatively well, and there's a lot he can do extremely well. And that being said, any matchups with a lot of buffs where opponent is not poison immune is definitely Voodoo's kind of like playground where he will excel. It is worth mentioning that Dr. Voodoo definitely 150,000% needs Mystic Dispersion to be actually performing to his standards. He's a champion that is complete night and day with and without Mystic Dispersion, because without Mystic Dispersion you get your level 1 or level 2, you shoot it off, it's all fine and dandy, and then you have to go and ramp it up again. But when you do have Mystic Dispersion, and when you get to nullify the buffs, when you get to trigger the Mystic Dispersion often, plus he also additionally places buffs on opponents himself that he can nullify and gain more power, and it just kind of takes off like a freight train. Now, you definitely would wish Dr. Voodoo would hit harder, those poisons would do some more damage than they actually do, because in an average matchup, he really isn't anywhere close to being a damage powerhouse, and damage output probably is one of the weaker sides overall, all in all, when we're talking about Dr. Voodoo. Now, that being said, he has a fairly unique signature ability that interacts with a lot of synergies as well, but increasing his ability accuracy chance, so he can nullify stuff that quite often is not meant to be nullified when it's being protected by Mr. Ward, Mystic Ward, or some of the Angela signature abilities and stuff like that. At the same time, he also can access his odd combo, which basically decreases opponent's ability accuracy by 50%, which is quite useful, definitely helps in quite a lot of scenarios, like you can minimize the amount limbo damage you take from magic or so on and so forth. At the same time, all debuffs you inflict on opponent gain basically double the duration, and that can be exploited with parry, and with that you can basically parry opponent and safely land a full combo or close to a full combo into the opponents. And there is a lot kind of interesting things this character can do. Now, obviously, unfortunately, he might not necessarily have gotten back his kind of like limelight, because when he entered the contest, he was in forefront of Mystic class and one of the favorite kind of champions for people to use, and he got a really big cult following. Unfortunately, throughout the years, with kind of like a huge gap in between Act 5 and 6, his usability kind of decreased by a fair amount, because he was not the most present champion in Alliance Wars. He did relatively decent in Alliance Quest, but again, when it came to changing up and dealing with Ultron's drones, it didn't fare too well, because those are poison immune, and all in all, we have gotten quite a lot of poison immune characters in the game, or champions who just don't get debuffed much. So he never kind of reclaimed his original dominance at top of the Mystic class, but he's still definitely a worthwhile option. Also, he's one of the options for 6-6 champion. Now, even though he doesn't make for an easy fight, it's definitely doable using Dr. Voodoo as well. And yeah, I think he's well worthy of spot number 5, with a lot of kind of quirky and different utility bits available, power control, poison, so on and so forth, and acid wash becoming more and more kind of like present in the in-game content. For large amount of players, he might possibly be the only one champion that they possess at any decent level that has an easy access to poison, and that is important. I remember I was using at one point when I was dealing with Acid Patch lane in Alliance Quest, Dr. Voodoo pretty much every other week, because I didn't have Mysterio, I didn't have Man-Thing, I didn't have Black Widow Clairvoyant, or nobody else really that can place poisons kind of sustain, well, reliably on opponent. So I had to jump back to Dr. Voodoo. So yeah, either way, spot number 5, Dr. Voodoo. Spot number 4, this is going to be a quite huge fall from grace, and it actually kind of saddens me because this champion has done for me so much, and I still actually get to flex her out now and then, but it's going to be Magic, because Magic still is definitely very much there and present when it comes to being able to tackle a lot of endgame threats. Unfortunately, the way the lanes are built do not permit her to do so efficiently in many of the occasions. Now, and previously the kind of like battling between Magic and Symbiote Supreme, and I pushed Magic forward with the main argument being that Magic has a lot less bad matchups, and she can do relatively well in pretty much majority of the fights, but the nature of the endgame has kind of shifted, and these fights are much more specific, and with the exception of a handful of champions, there is no champion that does well in large amount of kind of like lanes path fights in Act 6.2 and Act 6.3, and that is kind of like current peak of the meta, which I'm often kind of like referring to in order to value these champions. And keeping that in mind, she definitely lost a lot of her allure. As well, obviously, when we got the new Alliance War map introduced to us, she lost some bit of her usefulness there, and in sad reality you see less and less of her. Now I still do like her, I still love her, I'm still happy to have ranked her, and I still find her extremely useful, but the problem is here. If she's not good for majority of the fights anymore because of the way that 6.2 and 6.3 is built, and she performs less spectacularly in the fights that technically she should be good for than, let's say, Symbiote Supreme does, then Symbiote Supreme naturally kind of like pushes ahead and a couple more champions. And therefore, even though I absolutely love Magic, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Magic, she's still, in my eyes, the queen of power control, by far the best kind of power controlling champion, or at least one of the best. And I love the playstyle. I love trapping opponents in a corner and just dashing at them and bashing their heads in till they drop, basically. And who doesn't love her outfit either? But that being said, unfortunately, I have pushed Magic down to spot number 4 currently. Now, spot number 3 is going to go to a champion that many people absolutely love, stand by him, and adore him. And I'm not one of them, I'll be honest. Like, I have a fair bit amount of reservations with the way he's gaining his power. I do not feel too comfortable bringing him in like a casual amount of fights, and that typically has been his kind of like key downfall as well. That he pretty much, in my eyes, was definition of a niche champion. The matchups that he does well, he does extremely well. The matchups that he's not good for, he completely sucks, and there's not much to him, and he's potentially one of the worst champions. If opponent doesn't buff much and if opponent is bleed immune, then he's a complete duddish guy, kind of. But that being said, again, with the shifting nature of the game, I think it is extremely important to recognize the value of this character, because time and time again, when there are difficult matchups, this guy shines through. It's kind of, to a degree, a version of Archangel, because if the conditions are met where this guy can operate well, he can absolutely destroy the opponents, dominate the fights, control them from start to the finish, deny all the buffs, power control them, eat level 3s if he has to, and just place insane amount of bleeds. And yeah, he's also one of those champions that's quite fun to play. Now, he is a fairly recent addition to my 6-star roster, and I will likely at some point take him up to rank 2, because definitely I can see his value and do appreciate it. I wish I could dupe him at some point though, but again, that being said, he does not necessarily have to be duped, but the dupe ability is nicer to have than most people think. And yeah, so Symbiote Supreme has proved himself, and he's probably the best answer for 626 champion, which is important in endgame to no end. Also, Do You Bleed Medusa boss and Mordo boss in 625, and quite many other matchups where people would struggle without him. This guy makes it relatively easy, and that is kind of like his key aspect. If he can do the fight, then most of the times he's considered to be one of, if not the best option for that fight. And that's why I know many people would probably rank him at first, even for them. I cannot go that far. I am willing to give him spot number 3, however. Now, spot number 2 and spot number 1 will go to the two newcomers, and I know people often get sissy and assy for YouTubers only like the new champions and YouTubers only like play with the new champions and stuff like that. But there is a good reason for it, because new champions have more abilities and they are more interesting by default. And also having more abilities has higher chance of those abilities to actually covering more ground. And spot number 1 and 2 is definitely between Dr. Doom and Black Widow Clairvoyant. And it is also extremely kind of conditional placement. And currently, and they are split by a hair, in my opinion. Currently, I have placed Black Widow Clairvoyant in spot number 2, and now I know that many people would like to see her in spot number 1, and I can agree to that with one very kind of huge condition is that you do have Suicide Masteries active. Mystic Dispersion is even less important, as a matter of fact, as the Suicides are, because without the Suicide Masteries, she really deflates her value with her damage output, because if she has that huge amount of utility, typically do not want to spend 5 minutes fighting through a fight. You could finish with a different champion in 2 minutes, even though she is capable of covering more ground. Now, that being said, once you turn on Suicides, pretty much everything she does seems to be working out better. The heal is better, the damage output is better, the fights go by so much quicker, therefore you often do not need to resort to throwing the special 3 in order to be able to reset your charges and so on and so forth, and the fight just gets so much more simple. And that being said, she is also a fairly complex character that you do have to know your way around her in order to navigate the fights. But the basic 3 aspects of the fight that she has, she shifts in between curses. One curse lets her be bleed immune, one curse lets her be poison immune, one curse lets her be incinerate immune. So she basically can cover up 3 different immunities. At the same time, whichever curse she's on, she's also capable of inflicting debuffs of the same immunity. So if she's immune to bleed, she's capable of inflicting bleed on opponents, so on and so forth. And they also give her level 2 different abilities. They vary from heal to power control to extra damage. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do and then go and do it. And that being wrapped around in this whole awesome suicide friendly package with a lot of nullify power, with a buff immunity debuff, which is also like a different way how to deal with buffs, is just quite a crazy combination. And I think it's definitely well-rounded champion design, because she has her flaws. You do need to know what you sacrifice in order to access certain bits of utility, and at times it might backfire, but typically for most situations she's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, where you just kind of whip out the extension that you need and get the job done and move on to the next one, and then either use the same one or different one or combination of both, so on and so forth. So there, she definitely has some matchups she's better and or worse up against, obviously, as most champions. And ironically, you do want to fight immune champions with her much more than anything else, because every time opponents protected by immunity, you gain discharge, you gain extra power, you can spam your special attacks quicker, and it's kind of good time overall in the house. But that being said, even when you're facing opponents who have no immunity, she's still definitely capable of delivering quite a lot of versatility. And yeah, with Suicide Masteries active, I would probably place her as the top champion in the game currently. Also, the fact that she does not need any kind of synergies really do speak quite highly for her. In fact, Mystic class is fairly unique in a sense, because I do not believe that anyone in top 5 really needs any synergies. There are some nice to have synergies, but they definitely do not rely on synergy partners nearly as much as most other classes. And now that I have said all of that, and I have taken a bit of a breather, I have to nominate my cousin, my ex-neighbor, Dr. Doom, to spot number 1, purely because he made me. he said otherwise, I'm gonna get thrown in jail or some stuff. Either way, Dr. Doom is a fantastic addition to contest. I think he is one of those champions that has a lot of things somewhat hidden behind kind of like ambiguous messages, as they should be with Dr. Doom, because he's such a fantastic Marvel villain. And initially, obviously, when Dr. Doom was announced, there was huge hype. Then when he came out, people felt that he isn't delivering. Then more and more footage came out, and then people were kind of like, wow, this actually looks great. And that is true. And when you actually get to play Dr. Doom, you get this kind of like really cool feeling that you're absolutely in control of the fight. At the same time, never really being in control of the fight, because he's quite unique in the terms of how he controls power and he gains power himself, and he thrives on having opponents have nearly 3 bars of power but never really being able to use them. So you have to be very precise, kind of like doctor-like in your movements and your combos. You need to know exactly what you're doing, but if everything falls in place, I have basically had a Labyrinth of Legends fights where opponent never throws a single special attack because I hardly ever have a chance to. And I think that is one of the biggest strengths of Dr. Doom, because even though technically opponent has some chances to kind of like do stuff and retaliate, most realistically, most of the fight, you feel like you're playing in a solo mode, because after you drop your level 3, opponent is immediately stunned, so you get an immediate opening, do medium, light combo into a level 1 that will basically give you level 2 immediately. Then you can make a decision whether to go and cash in your damage or push to another level 3. And if so, then you can just drop level 2 from wherever you are. You don't even need to find an opening because it's going to be unblockable. And it just feels kind of like you're doing a series of moves disregarding whatever opponent can and will do. That wrapped in the whole package that he delivers, with access to shock, with access to incinerate, with ability to nullify buffs really easily, place staggers on opponents, as well as having that aura and being super tanky. And that is one of the best things I love about Dr. Doom. His tankiness, his crit resistance, he feels like a force of nature when you play him, and when you play him correctly, he also delivers the damage like force of nature. And even when you play in Act 6.3, where the health pools are huge, you don't really feel them because the game length hardly ever changes. You still go get your level 3, drop your level 1, drop your level 2, and the fight's pretty much over at that point. And yeah, absolutely love using this guy, absolutely love using him more and more, finding more use for him. He absolutely destroys Annihilus, also Annihilus mini bosses and quests. He's great to deal a lot of damage to Thanos as well. He has a whole bunch of synergies, several quite interesting ones, but again, none of them are really essential for him. They just kind of help to enhance him and showcase him a bit more. At the same time, he does just perfectly fine without them. And yeah, I think Dr. Doom is currently the best Mystic champion in the game, if Suicide Masteries aren't currently active. If Suicide Masteries are active, I'd probably place Clairvoyant slightly above that. But if you're somebody who doesn't do that, then Dr. Doom is definite winner. And so yeah, that will pretty much conclude, I believe, my lists of each class. So again, for Mystics, we have Dr. Voodoo, Magic, Symbiote Supreme, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, and Dr. Doom as the top Mystic options. Now, few notable mentions before we finish out the video. One of the most fun champions in the game, and it was also a really new champion, released only this year, is Man-Thing. Now, Man-Thing is not fantastic, right? He's a champion that's kind of butchered by the stats and seems to be lacking a few things. Like, his level 3 animation literally makes opponents catch on fire, but he has no access to Incinerate or no Incinerate immunity. He's also a champion that poisons everything and everyone and doesn't have poison immunity. And his stats kind of suck. He's not extra large even though he should be. And there are plenty of negatives to talk about this guy. Especially how well excited people were to receive him, because he's a huge fan favorite. And so many people were hyped for him. And unfortunately, he did not deliver to it in any way, shape, or form. Now, all that being said, remembering that this is a game and the game is meant to be fun, then this champion delivered in the fun department. He might not be the best champion for endgame purposes and will not be clearing entire Act 6 for you or anything like that, but you get to use the guy in a good matchup. It's incredibly fun. You get to throw your arm at opponent, and then you get to poison them, and then you get to squirt some goo on them, and there's lots of poison, there's lots of armor breaks, and you just constantly keep spamming your special attacks, and it's a great time overall. So I still absolutely love this champion, and for better or worse, I'm happy he's in the game. Obviously, I'm slightly disappointed he wasn't better, but when it comes to like a casual playing, just enjoying the game for the sake of the game and having some sort of enjoyment, which is technically what we're all supposed to be doing, he is the most fun Mystic champion for me. And yeah, so another champion that I do like, I give him quite a bit of shoutouts throughout here and there, is Mephisto. Now Mephisto, one big problem with Mephisto is that he's a champion that needs to be ranked up content appropriate level. Like if you want to benefit from Mephisto the most in endgame content, you do have to kind of have him at rank 5. Act 5 level, rank 4 is fine, but anything kind of like above it, you do need to have this guy at rank 5 or rank 2 as a 6-star, and then you're going to notice that he's actually a really good champion. I definitely like the whole approach to the Mephisto, the things he does, the whole aura of Incinerate, the way he spams special attacks, and so on and so forth. They could have obviously done slightly better job at level 3 if it wouldn't be a one-off and you could actually stack the Incinerates once you drop multiple level 3s. I think that would work out really well for the character and would pretty much be all of the buffs that he needs. Just make sure that that level 3 ability to power drain and gain a permanent aura of incineration instead of being a one-off, make it able to stack up until 10 or something or 5, and then he would be an absolutely magical destroying machine. And that all being said, once again, Mystic class is the one class where you wish more so than ever that they would give you an option to skip the special 3 animation, because with all the extra power and the way champions like Dr. Doom, Black Widow Clairvoyant, Symbiote Supreme are designed, those special 3s get so old so fast, man. We're in 2020 nearly. Just give us an option to skip that animation, for crying out loud. I don't want to see 79 times how Namor whips his eels at, I don't know, whatever. That is one of the big... Actually, I'm going to note that down for a rant of 2020, because I'm definitely going to be recording a rant of 2019. And yeah, so level 3 animation skip. It's time. But again, and last few quick mentions. Morningstar, fantastic option. Really difficult to ramp up, but once you do, she's arguably one of the better champions in the game, or in Mystic class at the very least. Definitely has her use still at endgame, and a great cheese material for really many buff options. For sure, Morningstar still has her relevance in the endgame content. The last champion I could kind of mention would be Ghost Rider. Didn't really wanna, because he hits like a noodle and I don't really like him. He was kind of cool back in the day when Act 5 was a peak of the content, but ever since then, never touched him, never wanted to touch him. He's just like that little ugly girlfriend Blade brings along just to look better next to him. But I don't know, many people like him, so hey. Ugly Betty, Mystic class, Ghost Rider, here you go. And the dads, obviously, Ebony Maw and Diablo, pathetic piece of champions that suck, unfortunately. So 2 of the 5 champions that Mystic class received this year were absolutely rubbish. That was quite an unfortunate start, but luckily they have picked up towards end of the year. Now, all of that being said, this is the last video, last class I have covered, and tomorrow, more than likely, I'm going to be recording either top 5 or top 10 champions in the game currently, in my opinion, overall, throughout the classes. And yeah, that will do for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.